Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, here with some thoughts on a battle of unbeatens taking place later today. This is a fight I have my eye on between Christina Hammer and Maria Lindberg. Now, before I go further, just remember the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. This fight is huge. How big? On boxrec.com, and that's boxrec.com. It's a site I swear by. They have ranked the fighters, and of all the fighters in the light middleweight division, they have rated Maria Lindberg as the top rated fighter. In the middleweight division, one step up, they have rated Christina Hammer as the top rated fighter. So what you have is BoxRec's number one rated light middleweight taking on BoxRec's number one rated middleweight, and both women are unbeaten. I like the favorite. I like Christina Hammer in this fight. I don't believe the fight is close. If you look behind the curtain, you're going to see that Christina Hammer is 5'11", and she is 20 years old. And what I like with Hammer, who has more power and who throws straighter punches than Lindberg, is that Hammer knows how to use length. In other words, she can shoot a jab and keep you outside. She has boxing skills. Quite frankly, she reminds me a bit of Vitaly Klitschko. And let me also point out, too, that this fight is taking place at middleweight, and that's Hammer's home. Lindberg, as good as she is, will be fighting outside of her weight class. Lindberg is 5'5". She's giving away a lot of height, and she's going to have to find a way to get by Hammer's jab. And the problem is Lindberg, who fights a bit like Mike Tyson, right? She comes in, volume, pressure, shorter fighter. The problem is she doesn't have Tyson's power. She only has one knockout in her career. And I believe that power differential between herself and Hammer, who hits hard, Hammer's knockout ratio is 77%, is going to rule the day. I think Hammer, who is a minus 325 underdog, is actually underpriced in this one because of Lindbergh's stature in the light middleweight division. I like Hammer big. I think she wins big. I don't like betting on minus 325s, but in this case I'll make an exception because I believe Hammer should have been a much bigger favorite. She's fought more fights, even though she's 14 years younger than her opponent. She hits harder, and she has the faster hands, she throws the straighter punches, and she has the better jab. I like Hammer. Let me also unveil a very controversial theory that I have. Nothing backs this up in literature. I'm not backed up by physics. This is just based on what I've seen over the years watching boxing matches. Whether it's men or women, a pound is not a pound, right? There is an age dynamic to weight that is not reflected on the scales. What I've noticed is that younger people, and trust me, you figure this out when you're in your 40s and you've gained a few pounds, but younger people tend to carry weight so much better than older people, even older fighters like Bernard Hopkins, who stay in shape religiously, right? Younger people tend to carry weight so much better that you'll often run into a 20, 21, or 22-year-old who, even though they qualify at, let's say, middleweight, um, quite frankly, they're in a different weight class. In other words, they can show up and weigh 160, but because they're young and because there seems to be an age dynamic to weight, um, they really are in a different weight class. And it is fascinating because what will happen is as these fighters grow older, their bodies will fill out, as we call it, and they'll adjust to their natural weight, which is significantly higher than the weight they were at 20, 21, 22, 23. I'll give you an example. Thomas the Hitman Hearns in the 1980s, somehow he was fighting at 147 for a while. Devastating knockout power. In other words, he was a very young, lean guy, but yet his punch wasn't a welterweight's punch. His punch was really a light heavyweight's. And of course, Hearns would go on to actually at one point win the light heavyweight title, right? Later in his career as his body filled out. I believe Christina Hammer at 20 years old is actually big for 160. Keep in mind, she's 5'11", right? Her punch isn't a middleweight punch. Her punch is actually a super middle or light heavyweight punch, right? In time, as she gets older, as happens to most of us, she's going to gain some weight. She's going to fill out. And then her, punch will reflect her size. But right now, her punch is bigger than her weight because she is young, right? She carries the weight much better than most, right? She's an anomaly. So when you see a fighter like that who has a punch that's actually a super middle or light heavyweight punch, and she's fighting an opponent who's actually from the lower weight class, actually a light middle, who's in her mid 30s. In other words, she's not carrying the weight like a 20, 21, 22-year-old, right? She's actually in her mid 30s. Then what you have, and I don't care what the scales say at the weigh-in, what you have are literally two people from two completely different weight classes, even if they weigh the same at the weigh-in, right? I know what I've said is controversial, but think about it. Guys like Felix Trinidad, it's just, you'll always run into these very young guys who have outsized punches. And then as they get older and their body fills out, they'll jump several weight classes. Felix Trinidad actually fought, Roy Jones at light heavy, if I'm recalling this correctly, right? But yet Felix Trinidad for a while there was fighting at 147 earlier in his career, just like Thomas Hearns. Well, Christina Hammer is cut from the same cloth. Big punch. She's 20. She weighs 160 right now with a punch that's a 168 or a 175 punch. I think these women are from completely different weight classes. I would not even be surprised. I'm not going to bet it, but I would not be surprised if Hammer isn't able to become the first woman to stop Maria Lindberg. In my opinion, the size and power discrepancy, the age weight dynamic is that great. I like my recommended play is Christina Hammer to win at minus 325. Because the odds are so skewed, I'm not going to put a straddle on this one. I like Christina Hammer in this one to win the WBO female middleweight title, or rather to defend it. And I think this is a must-watch fight between two unbeaten fighters ranked first in their weight classes by BoxRec.com. Fight's going off later today. I hope you give it a look. And of course, let me know your comments, whether you agree with this or disagree, whether you think my age-weight dynamic is the sign of a madman or whether you think there might be some validity to it. If you're lucky enough to see the fight, I hope you stop by after the fight to leave your comments on the fight. Tell us what went the way you expected. Tell us what didn't. Let's discuss it. Let's start a forum. Thanks for watching.